Welcome back to 5 Minute Fantasy Football, presented to you by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Today we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the top offenses in football. We're going to go through Mike Clay's projections, talk a little bit about sleeper ADP. Before that, we're going to go to Underdog. They got season-long pick'em. Use promo code FFSGPN with your first deposit. Right now they have season-long for, they're higher or lower for their pick'em, 23.5 passing touchdowns or 10.5 rushing touchdowns. Higher or lower for Jalen Hurts? What do you think? Again, FFSGPN is the promo code. So let's look and see what Mike Clay has projected this offseason. They made a change at the offensive coordinator position. They really missed Shane Steichen last year, and so they brought in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was with the Chargers last season, and again, he lost his job when the head coach lost his job. They added Kenny Pickett via free agency and a trade, and then Saquon Barkley was the big free agent pickup, and they drafted Will Shipley and Johnny Wilson. Will Shipley, running back from Clemson. Johnny Wilson, the big tight end, the big receiver. Looks like a tight end, big receiver out of Florida State. So Jalen Hurts, he's got him finishing as the QB1. Right now he's being drafted as the QB3, so you can't do too much better than that, but Mike has him doing that. He's got 21 passing touchdowns and 11 interceptions, 3,626 passing yards. On the ground, 125 attempts, 536 rushing yards with 10 rushing touchdowns. Both of those lower than what Mike has. Mike hasn't projected lower than what Underdog has the pick'em set at. Again, Mike's projections are 15 games, finishing as QB1. Jalen Hurts is my QB1. I love Josh Allen, but it's hard to ignore the weapons here. I think you get a lot of similar play, but you can't ignore the fact that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are just so much better than the weapons that Josh Allen has. Saquon Barkley, there is some concern that Saquon Barkley, especially in the red zone, can take a little bit away from Jalen Hurts, and that could happen. But also this team is going to be a little bit more efficient, can sustain drives with a guy like Barkley who does a little bit more than DeAndre Swift as far as being a 3-down back. They have Saquon down for 1,045 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. Then in the air, 46 receptions, 361 yards, 2 more touchdowns. So that's about 1,450 total yards with 11 touchdowns, finishing as the PPR RB5. They have Kenneth Gainwell slated to be the backup. I wouldn't be surprised if Will Shipley takes that job. If I were going to be handcuffing Saquon Barkley, I would go after Will Shipley. I think he's a much better running back, and he also offers some receiving game. We've seen Kenneth Gainwell before. He's just not been impressive. He's also not been able to hold up when he's getting a lot of work. So I would take a shot on Shipley very late in my drafts. But really where you want to put your chips in is the receivers. A.J. Brown, he's wide receiver 6. According to Mike, he's actually going off the board as wide receiver 6. Devonta Smith, he's going off the board as wide receiver 23. And Mike has him projected to finish wide receiver 17. These guys have been super consistent, great for fantasy football, and they've shown that they can coincide. So you have 144 targets for Brown, 122 for Smith, 93 receptions for Brown, 1,306 yards for Brown, 8 touchdowns. He was very consistent last year, one of the most consistent receivers, and you also had the upside with multiple 2-touchdown weeks. Devonta Smith, he's got 84 receptions, 1,040, and 6 receiving TDs. That's wide receiver 17. Devonta Smith is a guy that before, when Dallas Goedert was in, Devonta Smith was out. No longer. The team just noticed that Devonta Smith is too good, and they've definitely featured him. And if A.J. Brown were to go down, this guy's a top 10 receiver. The next guy on the board, they have Paris Campbell, but Johnny Wilson is making a very strong case to be the slot receiver for this team. And Paris Campbell, we know, has just not been able to stay healthy. They have Aeneas Smith as well, also a rookie. They're really looking for a slot receiver here, and Johnny Wilson really fits that big slot role. Dallas Goedert, tight end 11 is where Mike has him finishing. He's going off the board right now as tight end 12. Goddard's just, he hasn't been able to stay healthy the last couple of years, and with the rise of Devonta Smith, you've seen him be less consistent in fantasy football. And it's just, there's not enough to go around to have those guys be 2 top 20 options, and then for Goddard to be a top 6 option. He's still a tight end 1. He's still a very athletic guy that, again, if one of those guys went down would thrive. But he just hasn't been able to get, enough targets to be as consistent, as well as stay on the field. Goddard, 66 receptions, 686 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he finishes as the tight end 11. He's pretty cheap. If you want to get, a late round tight end, there's worse options available. But again, if you get him, it's kind of a lineup headache right now about how consistent is he going to be in this offense. We've seen where he's gotten even 0 targets in a game. So that's the Philadelphia Eagles. As always, good luck this season.